Hello everybody. Today we are going to start the first lesson, Historiography, Development in the West. Now, in this lesson we are going to learn a great deal of amount, and these all points are very important. First, we'll introduce the lesson, what actually we are going to learn in this one. Then, tradition of historiography means how our historians they write and create their own perspective. After that, modern historiography. In this, we are going to learn about the sources of the history which are considered very useful in writing history. After that, development of scientific perspective in Europe and historiography, which means that what new things were brought into writing of the history, what new methods were introduced, and at the end we will learn about the notable scholars. There are so many people who have contributed to the writing of the history, that is historiography. So let's begin. Now, historical research, writing and studies, these are done because the historians need to understand the chronology of the events so that they can understand the actual events, the way the events have taken place, how the events have taken place. Then there is empirical method. Now this empirical method you might be aware of, because this empirical method is used in natural and physical sciences. It is done in laboratory. Observations and experiments are done there. And you all know that these observations and experiments that are done in the laboratory are always, the results are always true, irrespective of the place or time they are done. But this method, we cannot use it in the history. Now, what is the reason? The reason is we were not present when the event took place. Second thing, we cannot recreate those events too. That's why we cannot use empirical method. It is not suitable for writing history or to know what actually happened in the past. So, how do we understand how things have happened? Or a better question will be this, that if you are an historian, how will you know how things might have unfolded or how a particular event might have taken place? For that, you need to have an expert, and that expert needs to have a certain amount of knowledge of the historical sources. Now, in it first, he needs to know the language and the script of the historical document. Now, you all know that we have found Harappan civilizations inscriptions, or lots of things we have found there, or cave paintings are also there, like at Ajanta Ellora, or you have also seen an inscription of Louvre Museum in France, that is there in the textbook also. So these are very ancient documents or scripts or historical sources. So to understand what is written in it, one must have knowledge of these things. So we need an expert for that. Then there are other experts who examine the authenticity of the documents. Now we need to know, if we are going to write history, we need to have the authenticated documents. Otherwise, people try to manipulate the history, means the way it has happened, they might not present it to the world. That's why we need to authenticate the documents, and for that we need an expert to do it. Then these experts, they authenticate the documents by the lettering style, author's style of writing, or manufacturing date and type of the paper. Then there are stamps of authority also. Now look, it is very easy to understand. Now the experts that we are talking about who will authenticate the documents, but how are they going to authenticate, or if you wonder how they do it, there are very easy steps. Easy means for them it is easy because they are expert in doing that. They do it, or they authenticate these documents by understanding the lettering style. The way a particular letter is written, they can understand that this particular type of writing letters was practiced in a particular era. For example, maybe before Common Era, BCE, before, like that. Then the author's style of writing. Authors have a tendency, or their perspective is kind of different. If you have learned poems, then in it you can easily make a classification or a differentiation that different poets write in different way their poems. That's in the same way the author's style of writing. Then manufacturing of the paper. Now today's times, the way we prepare or we manufacture the papers, in the same way they were not manufactured in the ancient times. Obviously they did not have the same technology that we have today. So these experts understand which era those papers might have manufactured in. Then there are stamps of authority also. Stamps of authority means what? Means a king or a ruler who have given any order and he has put some seal on that order, and he want to implement that order. So there are these kind of stamps of authority also. So these are some ways which have been used to authenticate the documents by these experts. Now there are some methods of discipline which help these historians or these experts to understand or to figure out what type of source they are looking at. First of all, we will talk about archaeology. Now when we are talking about archaeology is about the remains that are found from beneath the earth. So these remains are found, and the people who excavate them are called archaeologists. So these archaeologists, they are well equipped, and they are expert in it, and they know a great deal of things that they can understand what type of remains they have found in the excavations. So first of all, it is archaeology. Now the second one is archival science. Now what is archival science? Archival science is the study and theory of building and curating archives. Now archival science deals with the way of buildings have been built. Now you all know that there are so many buildings in India which are so ancient, and we preserve them as our heritage. So archival science deals with this particular thing. Third is manuscriptology. Now what is manuscriptology? Manuscriptology studies the history and literature through the use of handwritten documents. Now manuscriptology is something that deals with the documents that are found and which are particularly handwritten. manuscriptology studies about these documents. Then fourth one is epigraphy. Now, what is epigraphy? Epigraphy is the science of studying inscriptions. Now, the inscriptions, if you have textbook, then on the in the first lesson only, in do you know section, in it an inscription is shown, its picture is shown, and that is from Louvre Museum, which is in France, if I'm not wrong. So it studies with the inscriptions. Now, fifth one is analysis of lettering style. Now, we have talked about it in the previous point, and it is the analysis of lettering style means the way the letters are written in any document or any seal of stamp of authority, these kind of things. Then comes linguistics. Now, what is linguistics? Linguistics is the study of language. There are so many languages that inscriptions are found in, or in cave paintings also. There also some words are written. So there are so many different ancient languages that we need to know about. For example, in Harappan civilization, so many things are written, text is there, which is inscribed on the walls and all, but yet we have not understood, or our experts have not been able to gather information about it. It means they could not crack that language, means they could not read it yet. But linguistics is a subject in which people learn to understand different ancient languages. Then numismatics. Now, what is numismatics? Numismatics is study of coins. Now, so many coins have been used. We have very ancient coins, and they tell us lots of stories, and we get lots of information from the study of coins. And the last is study of lineage. Study of lineage means in it people study about a particular dynasty, or when a king was born, when he ascended the throne, when he died, or the wars he fought, or who were his descendants, these kind of things. It is in the study of lineage that we learn in. Now, we talked about empirical method, and that was used in physical and nature and physical science. But how the historians who write history, how they come to a conclusion. To understand that, there is a method called historical research method. We'll talk about it. First, we'll talk about the first point. In it, collection of historical sources is done, and they carry out its comparative analysis. They to understand a particular event, how it happened, and they examine and they compare, and they make an analysis of the sources, historical sources they have. Then second is they examine relevant references of the available information. Here they examine the references that are given in different sources about a particular event. Third is they understand the references regarding time and space of the given historical events. Here they try to create a chronology by understanding different references or different understandings they have come to after comparing different type of sources. After that, they critically examine various sources of history. This is very important. We cannot write history just by having some old documents or some manuscripts or inscriptions. We cannot do that. The main reason is we need to know that the documents or the sources we are using are true. That's why critically examining these sources is very important. And after this, after doing all these 4 steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, our historians, they formulate relevant questions in view of the historical references. Means the understanding they have come to that they formulate or they create some questions and they get answers to it, and these answers that they get, these answers is their hypothesis. Hypothesis means what? Hypothesis means the narrative they have come to, or let me make it easier for you. They come to know how a particular event have taken place. That is called formulating hypothesis. Next, the next point is tradition of historiography. Now we learnt how our historians they form a particular hypothesis, or let's call it narrative. On the basis of that they write history. Now we preserve so many past events by critically examining the historical sources and writing the historical narrative. And this writing of critical historical narrative, this is called historiography. Students, this is very important. You would like to keep it in mind. The writing of critical historical narrative is known as historiography. Please make it a star or IMP. It is very important. You need to know that. And the next point, this one, it is also very important. A scholar who writes such narrative is called historian. And these 2 things you need to keep it in your mind precisely. Moving ahead, the historians who write history, they cannot include every event that have taken place. They have that have happened in the past. That's not possible. Why? Because the historians they create a particular framework in their mind, or the sources they have. On the basis of that, they form a particular concept about writing that history, and this conceptual framework of the historians that they adopt, this decides the inclusion and interpretation of historical events. How they include or interpret means how they write about that event. It is based on the conceptual framework of the historians that you need to understand. Then in the previous times, historiography was not that advanced the way it is today. Means today we have historical methods to understand. We have different type of disciplines that can help us to understand many different things, like coins when they were made, documents whether they are true or not, or the paper on which that document is written, when it was made or manufactured. We know a great deal of things now, but it was not the same to our ancestors. But does this mean that they did not want to write history the way we write? No, that is wrong. Our ancient people, they also felt that their their descendants, means the next generation, that the people who are going to come after they die, they should know how their ancestors have lived their life, the stories of their life, or the valor of these people. They wanted to pass to the next generation. And how they would do it? They did not have such things, or such scientific knowledge of writing history the way we have today. How did they do it? They did it by cave paintings, storytelling, singing songs and ballads. These were the ways they used to pass on the stories of their lives, how they lived their lives, to the next generation. And all these things, cave painting, storytelling, singing songs and ballads, these are regarded as the sources of history in modern historiography. So this was the second point, tradition of historiography. In the next video, we are going to learn about modern historiography, and there are some characteristics of modern historiography we will learn about. Thank you.